everybody. So my name is Angus Wright. I also go by Angus by Design. And my goal is to do my practice where I read a book and cultivate like mindfulness. And then I pull a card from a tool. It's the Gaia Oracle by Tony Carmine Salerno. And then I just kind of check in. And so I've been doing it live and sort of dedicating the practice to whomever shows up, just as an open practice. So nothing that I say or read or do is to project any kind of specific image or a specific idea of, this isn't a sales pitch. It's just a practice. For me, I'm certified in a number of things. I've been a Reiki practitioner since 2007. Reiki is universal life energy. It was developed by Dr. Mikao Usui, who was from Japan, highly educated person, traveled and went on a spiritual journey, took what he learned back home and developed it personally, creating symbols and ritual and routine, and applying it to principles that he could teach to his students. And from there, it has spread to communities all around the world. And trust and believe, you will find Reiki practitioners where you're like, did you even go? Did you attend the same, transformative process? But that's also part of, humor in life overall, right? We're all navigating our own sense of safety, as well as, bumping up into the digital world. And depending on what we put into, energetically, or with our thoughts or with our experiences, depending on what we're inputting into these spaces, is a reflection of what will be seen or what will be shown, right? And it isn't a big, huge conspiracy. It's just technology. It's how basically by whoever's inputting their energy into, or their information or their data or their hopes or their dreams, whatever, right, into the community, that's what we're going to get back. That's where we're going to feel like we belong. So this is meant to be a very open, affirming space. So the book, again, was is Insight Meditation, The Practice of Freedom by Joseph Goldstein. It was published in 1994. Joseph Goldstein is still very much alive and well, and doing lots and continuing his own journey. But I would encourage you to check out like ramdas.org, for example, is how I discovered him. There's free materials and podcasts and all sorts of stuff there. And then he even has like every delivery mode that resonates with you. He has. So as part of my practice, I've been trying to keep these under an hour. This is the last of this book. So I'm just going to kind of blow the time if necessary, or try to hammer it out, just because I do also back them up and record them, and I post them to my YouTube, which is under the same user handle. So if you're a creative type and an artist, if you're up and coming, if you have a story to tell, if you want to learn some skills or practice some stuff, or just share coffee, let me know. And I live in Ottawa. I have a summer place near Tweed, Ontario, but I've lived in thank you, Sonia. I've lived in Ontario, Canada for just about 50 years. The first 20 being up in Owen Sound, where I hatched, and then I've been in Ottawa, and like Stompin' Tom, saying, I've been everywhere, or I get around, or whatever. Some people, yeah. Oh, very cool. So you're welcome to, yeah, I love that you're checking into the chat. What's been really amazing, so I'm also kind of learning TikTok, right? And my gosh, the, as a Reiki guy, it's like, oh, I'm going to just open up my heart and see what's out there. And it's like, whoosh, like there's a lot on the go out there. And so, part of the practice has been to be like, okay, this is a space where we can learn from others, we can explore, go on an adventure, but it really is like checking in with ourselves to make sure that we're not hurting ourselves. Like, it's super easy to really get hurt by what we hear, right? And the sad thing is some people are just basically wallowing in the drama and the trauma so that they can get clicks, so that they can pretend that they're, I don't know, trying to sell you a bridge or something. You know what I mean? Whereas it's like, what I look like that. I really come off that way because I've been a blogger since like 1,000 years ago. That's part of looking like a wizard, is I've been around for a long time. And so, part of me as an artist, and I am registered as an artist. Angus by design is just my intellectual property, because I am a consumer survivor. I'm a survivor on many levels and many forms. I'm in recovery in many ways, but I also support and serve people who are navigating their own lives, and I have a container of experiences that span a lifetime, and I have a number of certifications that say that I know what I'm talking about, but they actually don't give me any clout, because in a world full of acronyms, some of the biggest clues get lost. And then in a world where people, just kind of believe that the only smart people are people who have a university degree or blah, 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 well, that's where in my life, that's been a huge barrier, but then it's also been a huge barrier. So I'm here where I am now. I'm educating myself. That's part of my practice in choosing these teachings and these teachers, right? And then, my practice being where it's like, I'm not trying to tell you, what you're about. I'm not trying to change the course of your life, because, part of this act on my part is what is called seva. It's service. It's also a yoga practice. It's, loving kindness meditation. and these things, these practices are born of action, right? So, yeah. So that's me. Part of why I do the practice as well is that I navigate my own challenges in life, past, present, and I'm certain to in the future, because I'm an emotional man with an opinion and I'm just getting older. So, but you know what? I also navigate and have navigated small town, rural, barely pronounce that word. You know, I've seen the crack of dawn, and I've seen dawn's crack and everything in between. So, you know, part of the practice is radical acceptance. You know, Garth Brooks sang, I have friends in low places. Like, I don't judge people in the same way. That's put me in vulnerable situations before, but I was born into an environment that, you know, created me. So part of that expertise and part of the practice is also helping to support everybody by getting a greater understanding about how we're impacted by the world around us. So if any of it resonates with you, feel free to send me a DM. Feel free to add me. I don't want to ever get into a scenario where you feel like, oh, okay, here's the sign up for, you know, the monthly this, that, or the other, right? Like, that's not what this is. That's not what my practice is for. If people want to throw money at me, I'm always like telling people, like, you go get rich and famous, and then I make a great pet. You know, you can build a little nest for me at the corner of your property and feed me snacks. You know what I mean? And then call on me when the party starts, because I love to go out and make fun and have jokes, right? So that's all of this, is that there's no expectation, and it's an invitation to get more comfortable. So part of my skill is teaching guided meditation and relaxation exercises, and I do have, when you look at the acronyms after my name, or you scroll back and sort of see or find me on other platforms, you'll see like everything that I have a credential for is something that's developed by people with like extraordinary lived experience. And I just want to let you know, like, I piss off a lot of people a lot of times, because, you know, just the act of being me and appearing confident, you know, being open for anybody attracts a lot of energy that we may or may not be prepared for. So, a lot of the people that I support and serve, it's really from a deeply confidential standpoint. It's rooted in evidence based practice, but it's all with assisted living. It's all part of, I'm never ever like, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a doctor. You know, I am a survivor. I am a consumer ex-patient. I'm a person with lived experience, with all the stuff that you can see in my background. But I'm also who I am today, and you know, I am who I am because of the values and ethics and beliefs that I have, which happen to go along with, you know, the place where I live, where I have certain rights and freedoms, despite how other people might perceive that. And with gratitude, I practice an unconditional high regard for others. And I also forgive people for their mistakes. So because it's not on me to judge. So I like to say the only judgment I want to do is personal judgment, for the art and the act of discernment, right? So all of this is just in reflection. But I'm gonna start to read now, and then we'll take breaks as we go, and then I'll pull a card after. So sharing the Dharma. I'm actually just going to move this around for a second because it will freeze on me. So all of us who practice the Buddha's way encounter a particular form of communication that can be difficult. Sharing with our family and friends about our Dharma practice, our understanding, is a great art that in itself is a challenging practice. Faith and confidence are wonderful fruits of practice, but we always have to balance them with discerning wisdom. Sometimes people become so charged with enthusiasm from the fresh energy of a meditation retreat that they want to tell their friends and family all about it. They assume that everyone will be interested. Sometimes people are, and sometimes they're not. Someone may greet you with, "How was the retreat?" That may just be their way of saying hello. If you give them a 3-hour discourse on the absence of self when they're just saying hello, your discernment may need some adjustment. So try to remember in such communications, I'm also giggling because this is like it speaks to me. I'm the guy that can just, the last 15 minutes, hello. So try to remember in such communications, as in all communications, to listen carefully enough to what people are asking so you know whether they are really interested or just saying hello. Here is a chance to put your practice to work, to exercise mindfulness and sensitivity. And even when you feel that a person is genuinely interested in learning about your experience, you need to let go of your own agenda in order to use the right skillful means. With the Dharma, any single part contains the whole, like a hologram. Whatever starting place you choose as you communicate with others can unfold to reveal the whole Dharma. This allows for the creativity of intuitive wisdom. You do not have to start at any particular place. Rather, you can open to another's experience and see where that person actually is. What are the concerns? Where is the suffering? Where is the interest? Begin from that place. If you genuinely hear a person, and if your outlook is one of loving kindness, then there is already an intimacy of connection. And even when our words feel inadequate, not hitting the mark, remember that the deepest communication is always in the way we are with people, not in what we say. The words we may use may or may not connect, but the quality of our presence always communicates. If you are more loving, more accepting, less judgmental, and more compassionate in your relationship with friends and family, That is a powerful communication. Years ago, someone wrote to Ram Dass after studying with him for a while. She had gone home to her family, who were fundamentalist Christians and very opposed to what she was doing. She was having a hard time, and in her letter, she described her difficulties. At the very end of it, she said, "My parents hate me when I'm a Buddhist, and they love me when I'm a Buddha." And then relationships with parents is up next. My gosh, I'm on a medication that just dries out my mouth. Might have to put gum in there. Of all forms of human communication, connecting skillfully to parents can, for many of us in the West, seem the most challenging. The Buddha said that because our parents made our life and growth possible, we have a special karmic relationship with them. In addition to the actual physical events of conception and birth that brought us life, our parents also gave us an enormous amount of care after we were born, at a time when we could not care for ourselves. Without their protection and support, we could not have survived. In so many ways, our parents gave us the gift of life. Because of this fact, the Buddha spoke of the responsibility we have to care for them in return and to try to establish them on a path of wisdom. He used a very strong image to convey this point. Even if we carried our parents on our shoulders for our entire life, the Buddha said it would not be enough to repay our debt to them. In our Western culture, this teaching sometimes creates difficulties because many people have emotional conflicts with or about their parents. They may have unresolved disappointment and anger, and may feel that their parents did not, after all, care for them enough as children. We have been learning increasingly in recent years that a distressingly high number of children in our society suffer emotional, physical, or sexual abuse by their parents. It seems as if the traditional Buddhist texts did not have Western culture in mind. For example, one classic teaching from the text urges us to think of every being as our mother. This advice implies that you feel towards all being as you feel towards your mother. You will have unbounded love for them. Clearly, this perspective does not work well, as we in the West often have problems with our parents and with our children. Coming to a wholesome relationship with our parents may be hard, but it is not impossible. In the early days of my practice in India, I had a friend whose mother was extremely angry that he was there practicing meditation. He would get letters from her saying that she would rather see him in hell than to have him in India meditating. You can imagine the impact of receiving a letter like that from your mother while you are very sensitized by deep, intensive practice. They were fiercely angry letters. One day, we were talking about this situation with Dippama, our teacher in Calcutta. When my friend told her of his mother's letters, Dipama reached under their mattress, took out 10 rupees, gave them to him, and said, "Buy her a gift." Dipama lived very simply in Calcutta. So those 10 rupees were themselves a consequential gift. My friend followed her advice because he responded not with anger, but with generosity, because he did not simply withdraw in response to his mother's wounding letters. That gift began a gradual change in his relationship with her. Her response softened, and their relationship began to heal. The story ends in quite an unusual way. My friend eventually returned to live with both his mother and his father, caring for them full time until he died, or until they died. This story interests and inspires me because it shows that even when the relationship is extremely difficult, if we know the importance of keeping an open heart and maintaining contact, the situation can become workable. It helps to remember that we have a very special karmic relationship to our parents. We were not born into a particular family by accident. No matter what kind of emotional relationship we have had with our parents, in some way or another, they made it possible for us to connect to the Dharma. So something worked out beautifully, even in our attraction to the Dharma, may have come about as a reaction to great suffering in our lives. There is something wonderful about the way life has unfolded to enable us to hear and practice Dharma, a rare opportunity in the world. Parents can be a splendid test. We practice on ourselves, then we go home. Here is the final exam. Oops, didn't make it that time. What are some ways to work with situations when our parents are difficult or the relationship is difficult? One of the hardest things is not to expect them to be different from what they are. Relating to people by wanting them to be different creates tension and conflict. Suppose you have rigid, controlling parents. Have you ever observed a rigid, controlling mind in yourself? We all have many sides to ourselves, and we act them out in different ways. Can we extend to our parents the same acceptance and compassion we try to generate toward everything we see in ourselves? The same non-reactiveness, non-judgment, and non-evaluation. This does not mean that we have to like rigidity, but we can learn, nevertheless, to be genuinely accepting and compassionate. So as you relate to different parents, you might also remember the proximate cause of metta, or loving kindness, seeing the good in beings. Even when people have many negative tendencies, almost everyone has at least some endearing qualities. Focus on those things. If you really aim your mind at the good qualities, it will create some feelings of metta. And again, no matter how troubled our psychological relationship with our parents has been, or how they have behaved towards us, somebody took care of us when we were entirely unable to fend for ourselves. For most of us, that somebody was one or both of our parents or caretakers acting as our parents. That is a great gift. They may have had their own uptightness and confusion, but nevertheless, we are breathing in this moment because of them. That is why the Buddha emphasized so dramatically the debt we owe to our parents for such extraordinary giving that actually enabled us to stay alive. We cannot deny that often there are deep problems, and there is no guarantee the problems will change. But even then, we can come to a space of acceptance, truly feeling metta and compassion. Coming to that space is a very important part of dharmic practice, because we suffer when we are cut off in a fundamental way from our parents or from anyone. Trying to keep channels of communication open, trying to just be there with the way our parents are, is well worth the effort. I should add one caveat here. If you are a survivor of abuse, if you suffered physical, sexual, or emotional violence committed by your parents, you may have to go through a necessary process before you can open to them with forgiveness and compassion. True healing and forgiveness, both within ourselves and with others, cannot be achieved by shortcut. First, we have to know and understand fully the suffering involved. So abuse survivors may necessarily have to experience a therapeutic time of thoroughly feeling the fear, the anger, the hatred, and the grief caused by the abuse. And for their healing, they may have to go through a period of no contact with those who caused the pain. After completing the process, then they may choose to reach out with forgiveness, love, and acceptance. In addition to caring for our parents, we can also fulfill our responsibility to them by trying to establish them in the Dharma in some way. So we begin this effort simply by being a certain way with them, so that even without words, we communicate something strongly. That communication has to come first from our own acceptance of them as people. If you go back to your parents and start talking to them about selflessness and dependent co-arising, and then tell them they have to meditate every day, it surely will not work. But if you go back and manifest a spirit that is a little more loving, caring, and accepting, then some communication can evolve out of that acceptance. And then it's just a matter of looking for opportunities. When I first began Dharma practice and was traveling back and forth between America and India, I felt very enthusiastic about meditation. When I was in the United States, I would stay at home with my mother. After dinner, I would cut a little deal with her. How about you meditating while I wash the dishes? She was happy with that bargain and agreed to try. That was the beginning. So if you're joining or following along, I'm about to read about the right livelihood. This is finishing up the book Insight Meditation, The Practice of Freedom, Joseph Goldstein. He's from so he founded actually the Insight Meditation Society in Barre, Massachusetts. But he was part of the folks that, in Ram Dass's circle that, went on a journey himself, and he's been practicing ever since. And he's still alive and practicing well. So, but just finishing up the book. I love that it's from sort of the 90s because one of the experiences I have is as an advanced level RAP or Wellness Recovery Action Plan facilitator, which is I discovered it in the public library. It was developed by Mary Ellen Copeland, who's now a doctor. She's got a PhD. And it was co-developed and has a huge history in collaborations that made it an evidence-based practice that was put into, so the 5 key concepts were developed in 1997, and then it was put into evidence as a program that helped people in 2010, and that's SAMHSA, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. So anyway, it ties in with all of this. I really just love the ability, the influence, the people that came from the 90s. There's a lot of really amazing, free, accessible, supportive, people-oriented tools out there. And then the rest is our story, right? The rest is our practice and how we show up. So that leads to right livelihood. So we all need food, shelter, and clothing, and we need the means to obtain such necessities. How can we use this unavoidable aspect of our life, our livelihood, as part of our practice? The Buddha considered how we make our living so important that he made right livelihood one of the 8 aspects of the Eightfold Noble Path. Those qualities we must practice and perfect in order to liberate ourselves. So, right livelihood is an important question, particularly for those of us practicing in the West. Most Asian Buddhists, deeply committed to liberation, enter the monasteries. When you are in a monastery, you do not have a problem about right livelihood. Every aspect of your life, down to the smallest detail, has been especially designed to expedite your liberation. But at least for now, most of us who follow the Dharma in the West have not chosen to go the monastic route. We live in the world as lay people, right in the midst of the maelstrom. And yet, at the same time, we feel a deep commitment to liberation in this lifetime. We are not just practicing to be reborn in a heaven or deva world. We really want to be free. So how to bring this dedication, interest, and aspiration into the work in the world outside the monasteries is a very key question. We are all challenged by this question, and we are discovering the answers right now by living out the problem. Our generation of practitioners will pass on a wisdom forged through a lot of difficulty, because this search for solutions is not an easy one. From the perspective of right livelihood, it is not essential that we do any particular kind of work apart from avoiding those activities that are obviously harmful, that involve killing or stealing. Most livelihoods can be part of the spiritual path. It depends less on the work itself and than on how we do it. Our story epitomizes, for me, the spirit we can bring to our work. Years ago, the great Tibetan Buddhist teacher Kalu Rinpoche visited the Boston Aquarium. As he walked through the aquarium, he tapped on each window of the tanks to get the attention of the fish. And the fish swam up to him and said very quietly, Om Mane Padme Hum, a blessing in the Tibetan tradition. Just to go through life blessings others is a beautiful thing to do. Dipa Ma was also like that. She was always blessing. She blessed people and animals and airplanes and buses. Wherever she went, she gave blessings. Be happy, be happy. If somehow we can practice that spirit of blessing in our work, the spirit of service, then we transform what could be a very ordinary job into something that really carries us along the great way. The power of that spirit is tremendous. Cultivating it takes a presence of mind. Perhaps remember that whatever work we can do, or whatever work we do, can be an offering of service to others. So the Dalai Lama conveyed this idea very simply. We are visitors on this planet. We are here for 90, 100 years at the very most. During that period, we must try to do something good, something useful with our lives. Try to be at peace with yourself and help others share that peace. If you contribute to other people's happiness, you will find the true goal, the true meaning of life. And so that's next is on reading texts. It's a short one, then humor, then training for death, and then vipassana and death, metta and death, to benefit all beings. And then that's it. These are fairly short, but... And of course, it's a perfect time to just check in with where you're at. Normally this was a 60-minute practice, but I just figured I wanted to just finish off the book and then move on to other books. There's been a couple of times where I blew time, but that's okay. It's all extra time, and it's all available. All the chapters are available in the same process, the same method on my YouTube. So on reading texts, because the teachings emphasize the direct, unmediated experience of Dharma, the essential nature of reality, people sometimes feel confused about whether they should read Dharma texts at all. Is it necessary to read and study the texts to come to a deep understanding? The answer is clearly no. Many great saints and sages throughout the centuries have practiced without much study or have even been illiterate, but have come to profound realizations from the Dharma. Can it be helpful to study the texts? For many people, the answer is clearly yes. The texts themselves are simply the Buddhist teachings, or the teachings of other great masters in the various Buddhist traditions. They point directly to the nature of the mind, the nature of suffering, and the nature of freedom. These teachings are not to be taken simply on belief, but rather they can be used as arrows pointing to our direct experience. When someone points a finger at the moon, the value of the pointing is in our looking at the moon, not in our staring at the finger. For this reason, reading texts does not have to be just an academic investigation. These extraordinary teachings are not merely a system of ideas, nor are they a set of beliefs. They are more basic, more essential than that, illuminating how the mind works, what the nature of reality is, and how to cultivate clarity of perception. Before beginning meditation practice, reading and studying can clarify the teachings and inspire people to take the next step on their spiritual journey. And reading the original texts after one has practiced a fair amount can open new doors of understanding. So when you read in the proper external and internal environment, when the mind is settled, quiet, concentrated, the words may come alive in an extraordinary way. So if you've done something, if you've done some sitting already, and if you are inclined to do so, you may find that going back to the original sources widens your perspective on the path. Several of the English translations are not very good. Many sutras or teachings of the Buddha contain a lot of repetition because they were transmitted orally for several centuries before they were written down. If you read them expecting to be entertained, Robert Ludlum would work better. But if you read them slowly and carefully as a direct pointing to reality and take time to investigate, to taste the nature of that reality, they can illuminate your experience considerably and clarify and deepen your practice. The next section is humor. So, a sense of humor is indispensable in the practice of the Dharma, both on retreat and on the roller coaster of our life in the world. When we reflect for a moment on the quality of mind a sense of humor implies, we see that it creates some inner space. Being able to see the humor, the lightness, and the emptiness of phenomena is really a great blessing during those times when we become caught in the various dramas of our lives. The Buddhist texts provide a whole explanation of manifestations of humor. They do it, of course, in the traditionally dry fashion of the Abhidharma, the Buddhist psychology. The texts describe the different kinds of laughs people have at various stages along the path. When something strikes uncultured worldlings as being funny, they will roll about on the floor. One in the middling stages of enlightenment will laugh out loud. Arhats, or fully enlightened beings, will laugh, showing their teeth, and the Buddha simply smiled. The point is that there are refinements to the quality of humor. Being with different teachers and seeing so many different styles of Dharma teachings and presentations has taught me much about humor, including understanding that humor is often quite a cultural matter. I have seen the most strict and demanding Asian teachers almost lose control laughing at a particular joke that does not seem funny at all from a Western point of view. At one time, the late Burmese master, Venerable Tongpulu Sayadaw, was giving a Dharma talk. He always lectured in the traditional fashion, holding a ceremonial fan in front of him. He was talking about mind and matter, and one of the yogis asked whether a dog has both. The Sayadaw could hardly stop laughing. He thought that was the funniest question as he reflected on what the alternative might be. Humor also serves us in times of great difficulty or suffering. It helps create spaciousness of mind around the suffering and can help loosen the bonds of identification. One example of this is Oscar Wilde's probably apocryphal last words. He had been released from prison, a sick, broken, impoverished, disgraced, and dying man. He went to Paris, where he died in a cheap rooming house in a slum. The wallpaper in his rented room was horrendously ugly, and Wilde was nothing if not a stylish man. It is said that just before Wilde died, as he lay on his deathbed, he turned his face to the wall and said, "One of us has got to go." Oscar Wilde's quite the character. So normally this practice has been like a 1 hour thing, but this is just reading the end of the book, Insight Meditation, The Practice of Freedom by Joseph Goldstein. I discovered Joseph Goldstein through ramdas.org. It's an organization. It's the Love, Serve, Remember Foundation, where they take the teachings of Ram Dass and Neem Karoli Baba, and just like it's all sort of what the experience was of the introduction to Eastern culture and Eastern, like all this information and wisdom, how it was kind of introduced during the modern history, right? And so it's pretty cool because a lot of those folks are still practicing, they're still holding space, they're like the heads of all these opportunities where we can learn in real time, but we can actually learn from people from all over. And now, at least where I am in Canada, and maybe more so in the US as well, is that, well, especially in Canada, we have an increase in people who have awaited the opportunity to be rightfully seen and recognized here, and but also people who deserve to come here and be part of making Canada stronger. And so I'm very excited about that because regardless of any of the negative we might hear, the experience of living in diverse experience cultures, seeing people all the way from literal ground level to the tip top of the buildings that I'm not allowed in, where all the corporations are. I mean, yes, I'm 50 years old, but I live right downtown. I live right in the middle of it. I love it here. Any snooch. So the next section is training for death, which sounds, based on what I even just shared, maybe sounds like dun dun dun, or if you're just joining, right? But it's teachings from the 90s about Buddhism. So next time you face some difficulty, imagine that you face your dying moment. Imagine that you are actually dying. How then do you want to relate to the difficulty? From the perspective of the dying moment, are you willing to be lost in confusion and reaction? Do you want to avoid the moment or to hide from it? Or do you want to be accepting, present, and alert? Many different spiritual traditions emphasize the practice of recollecting our death because such an awareness puts the events of our life into a powerful perspective. How easily we become caught up, invested in our own dramas and stories. The recollection of death as a living presence in our life can bring us out of the movies of our mind and put our experience into a much bigger perspective. By holding that awareness, we live with greater spaciousness and ease. Thinking of meditation practice as training for dying inspires me a lot, especially in times of emotional storm or physical pain. Probably dying will be difficult. So here we are right now in a difficult situation we see where we are and how we can open. This is our training. We sit, and after 15 or 20 minutes, some discomfort comes in the body, pain in the knee, maybe, or in the mind. We see what a struggle it is actually to open in a balanced way to that discomfort. But by practicing it, we learn it. There is a fair chance that we will face even more discomfort as we die. Probably there will be some measure of pain in the body and some difficult emotions as we begin that incredible journey into the unknown. How will we be able to relate to them? How will we be able to face them from a place of peace, of openness, of acceptance? Or will we react with fear or anxiety, or even with panic or terror? Every sitting, every walking, every moment that we practice is an opportunity to train our mind. Can I open to this? Can I accept this? And the deeper we go in practice, the closer to the edges we get. Those boundaries of what we are willing to be with expand. Death may be such a boundary. Can we train ourselves so well that we can cross that boundary with confidence when we come to it? And then Vipassana and death. I'm just moving this around so that it sees that I'm still active. And so as we go through this process, whether it is the process of our life or the process of our dying, the power of Vipassana, insight meditation, develops a very strong observing power of mind. Often in the midst of our practice, as we struggle with the ups and downs, the times when things are clear and the times when they are not, we forget the tremendous force and karmic power of every moment of seeing clearly. The Buddha illustrated, there we go. Let's see here. So he described the various karmic strengths of different activities. One such activity is dana, the Pali word for generosity, a great power of purification that the Buddha emphasized again and again in his teachings. He said that the karmic power of a gift is determined by three things: the purity of the giver, the purity of the receiver, and the purity of the gift itself. That is, whether or not the thing has been rightfully acquired. So, according to this understanding, to make an offering to a fully enlightened being has extraordinary karmic potency because of that person's purity. The Buddha then said that it is far more consequential to experience just one moment of a mind fully absorbed in the feeling of loving kindness or metta than it is to give a gift to the Buddha himself and the entire order of enlightened beings. And further, he said that many times more powerful than a mind fully concentrated on loving feelings is the karmic consequence of one moment's clearly seeing the arising and passing away of phenomena. The Buddha was referring here to that stage of insight in the Vipassana practice where one knows very surely the momentariness of all appearances. This clear and sure insight into impermanence is far more fruitful than giving a gift to the Buddha and the whole order of enlightened beings, or of feeling loving kindness. Why? Because in that clarity of vision lies the seed of freedom. What is the alternative? We all experience it often in our lives. We become caught up in and identified with different emotions, thoughts, interactions, confusions, various pains in the body and in the mind. At these times, we forget the most basic truths of existence and contract into the prison of self. There may well be physical and mental suffering at the time of your death. Can you train yourself to be with them in an alert, open way, simply noticing so that you remain as conscious and unentangled as possible? Can you rest in awareness, undistracted, as this great mystery unfolds, and see the basic impermanence and insubstantiality of all appearances? If you can encounter the experience of dying with this, what am I looking at here? With this much mindfulness, then even if there is confusion, fear, or pain, your noticing mind will be so strong that these things will pose no problem. So, just confusion, fear. Or you will be lost instead in those habitual reactions of craving, hatred, fear, whatever. Or will you, be lost instead in those reactions of craving, hatred, fear, or whatever. So do you see in this way how the practice we do, this simple, clear observation, is tremendously powerful? Do not undervalue the results of simply staying present with the moment's experience and of insight into impermanence on a momentary level. The consequences for how we live and how we die are far greater than we may ordinarily realize. That's pretty deep. And then metta and death. And so remember, this is insight meditation. So these are reflections. These aren't absolutes. This isn't telling you what to think. But so this is metta, so loving kindness, right? and death. So metta, loving kindness, can also be an extraordinary tool for dealing with our own death or with the deaths of others. Metta has a special power to soften the mind and heart as a way to deal with fear and to overcome it. The oncoming of something as mysterious as death can very often arouse fear in our mind. We may fear the pain that often comes with dying. We may fear the uncertainty of our situation. We may fear the unknown. When the Buddha first introduced meditation, he taught it to a group of monks who were in a terrifying situation as a specific antidote to the mind state of fear. Any of us can have a sense of the power of loving kindness if we develop it deeply. As the metta becomes strong, we learn to reside longer and longer in a place of goodwill and loving care for ourselves and for other beings. As we rest in the simplicity and strength of those feelings, we see that when metta is in our heart, fear is absent. Metta and fear do not coincide. The stronger the metta, the more it stands as a bedrock for us. It becomes a refuge. So we gain tremendous strength from cultivating this quality deeply, strength we can turn to at any crisis in our lives, including our death. Metta and Vipassana are complementary powers that can be blended together skillfully. If in a difficult situation, like dying, we become too constricted, too reactive, too caught up, and mindfulness is not strong enough in itself to deal with the situation, then we can take refuge in loving kindness practice until the mind and heart become more peaceful. After some time of resting in ease, we can open again with mindfulness to whatever is present. Having this skill in blending the two types of meditation is critical for how we practice now, for how we manage at the time of our death, and also for how we are present with others who are dying. A person's surroundings at the time of death can do a lot to support a wholesome mind state. Even if someone dying does not appear to be responsive, do not assume the person is unaware. I have heard many stories of people who have been in comas, who after coming out of them spoke about having experienced a state of great clarity. They were not communicating, but they were very present. We do not really know what is going on at such times. It may look one way from the outside and be very different on the inside. We serve a dying person by generating the force of metta. If we can do it in a pure, strong way, it has a calming effect. We radiate the energy of peace. Vipassana can also serve us wonderfully at such a time because it gives us the power to observe our own mind. Mindfulness enables us to watch the feelings and reactions we're going through without becoming caught up in them and having our reactions leach into an already difficult situation. Witnessing the dying of someone we care about can be a very intense experience. As difficulties come up for us, can we open to them, let them wash through, and then settle back into the radiant power of loving kindness? Awesome. And then just continuing, we have to benefit all beings. And that is really it. And then it's the index and the different books and the beautiful cover. All right. And so, looking back at the very beginning where it said that this book was dedicated to those whose generosity and love of the Dharma have made possible so many things. And the birds have vanished into the sky, and now the last cloud drains away. We sit together, the mountain and me, until only the mountain remains, and that's Lipo. Part 1 was what is the path. Part 2 is how to practice. 3, freeing the mind. 4, psychology and Dharma. 5, selflessness. 6, karma. And 7, practicing in the world. And so far, yesterday and today, we covered staying present, wisdom and love, loving kindness, compassion, the art of communication, sharing the Dharma, relationship with parents, right livelihood, on reading texts, humor, training for death, Vipassana and death, and metta and death. And we'll finish with to benefit all beings. Oh, what a great book. Whether we consciously intend to or not, we journey on this path of awakening, not only for ourselves, but also to benefit all beings. As we begin to understand more deeply our own nature, the reality of the mind and body, we see that this nature is universal. We see that differences are relatively superficial. They are differences of certain kinds of conditioning only. Our personalities are different, so are the look of our bodies and the contents of our thoughts. But the way our minds and body works is the same in each of us. Anger, fear, love, and compassion feel the same in all people. Our bodies all get old and die. From a growing awareness of ourselves, we come to a much deeper sense of our commonality with others. To the degree that we understand this commonality, we relate to other beings in a very different way. We have much less sense of separation, less sense that other people and even animals are so different from us. I have felt this falling away of separation most noticeably as I have traveled to teach in different cultures. For example, I have taught several times in what was formerly the Soviet Union. Both the living conditions there and how people relate to one another are quite different from here. Yet in the practice of Dharma, the commonality of experience became so obvious. The same knee pain, the same wandering mind, the same emotions, the same power of awareness. We all saw that underneath the differences of culture and circumstance, we shared the basic truths of life. This led, as it always does, to strong feelings of closeness and connection. By understanding ourselves, we quite naturally come to understand others, feeling increasingly the bonds of oneness. Issa, a 16th century Japanese poet, expressed this well. In the cherry blossom's shade, there's no such thing as a stranger. Our own practice also directly benefits all beings, precisely because everything is interdependent. We recognize that our life of necessity has an effect in this world. There are so many levels of connection among all beings and things that the quality of our mind and heart inevitably has effects that we might not even see. The new science of chaos describes how underneath our ordinary perception, things are very chaotic and hard to understand. This chaos reveals itself to us in such everyday events as weather changes or smoke rising. Yet, if you go deeply into this chaos, you will find wonderful patterns and connections within it. There is a principle called sensitive dependence on initial conditions, which means that a small input at the beginning of a process can result in a large output later in the process. So the science of chaos tells us a butterfly may flap its wings in China and set in motion a change of causes that affects a storm system in Boston. So that is how interconnected everything is. We do a kind act, or speak angry words, or live in awareness, and the effects ripple out. So the more sensitive we are to the interdependence of things, the more we see how the quality of our own lives affects not only the people we actually meet, but also all beings. The Buddha did something one night more than 2,500 years ago under a tree in Bodh Gaya, India. And because of that act, you are sitting reading these words in the late 20th century. How amazing for this result to happen. A chain of events has spanned 2.5 millennia and many different cultures and countries. And the chain does not end with you holding this book. It stretches from you through who you or through who knows what time and space. In this mysterious universe of subtle and vast interconnections, each one of our actions is as delicate and far-reaching as the butterfly flapping its wings. And the freer we are from greed, hatred, and ignorance, the more our lives will be for the benefit of all. Reflecting on that fact can infuse our practice and our lives with spaciousness and love as we travel this ancient and fully contemporary path. So for more information, it says, readers who desire information about insight meditation retreats and teachings worldwide may contact the Insight Meditation Society, 1230 Pleasant Street, Barre, Massachusetts, 01005. For information about Insight Meditation audio and video cassette recordings, please contact the Dharma Seed Tape Library. So I'm not sure if that still exists, but go check out the Insight Meditation Society, because I would bet you between the 90s and now there is a lot more to see. So I'll pull a card real quick, and then that way I can keep it under 1.5 hours. And we'll say this is a gratitude card, and if we take all the time we spent in creating this together, where could it lead us? And this says, Night Wind, Facing Fear, Subconscious Release and Healing. I think we had this card earlier, but I love it. So 23. I got 2 minutes. Facing Fear, Subconscious Release and Healing. This card relates to the disturbed sleep patterns, vivid dreams, or nightmares you have been experiencing. Something is troubling you, yet you are not openly acknowledging this, either to yourself or others. This unresolved issue has created fear and anxiety, which you have yet to resolve. Because of this, your subconscious mind is processing the issue as you sleep, the fear resurfacing in your dreams time and time again in various forms and guises. This is your subconscious mind's way of dealing with the issue and forcing you to face your fear. On some level, this is helpful. However, the only way this issue can be resolved is by consciously facing your fear. First, truly acknowledge your fear. Express it in detail by writing it down, and then share it by talking about it with someone you trust. This simple process takes some courage, but it is well worth it. Acknowledging and expressing your fear is the first major step towards healing this issue. You will find that all will be revealed soon. And the affirmation, I share my fears and concerns with those I trust and love. There is nothing to fear. There is only love. All will soon be resolved. I am safe. I am loved. I face my fear and feel it dissolve in a pool of love. So that's that. Thanks, everybody. I'll see what I read next time. Take care.